star so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. You'll get your ass moving, sun will burn in daylight.
Howdy there, I'm Matt McKinley and we're burning daylight.
In the saddle till the job's done right.
Oh, welcome back. You guys know the drill. You know the song. But this is the Friggin Farm Ranch Report for March 12th, 2026. I made it through 20 years worth of time in one incomplete sentence there. Started in 2006, ended here in the future. Because right now it's March 11th for another hour here on the West Coast. Today we're going to try to do a little better episode than we did yesterday. I was satisfied, I suppose. I wasn't satisfied. I was accepting of yesterday's episode, obviously, because I put it out, but I wasn't real happy with it, but it was fine, I suppose. But we're gonna try to do it a little better. I've got numbers from the National Beef Wire. Then we got about what is driving all these crazy numbers, and a lot of it has to do with the Middle East. Big shock. Yeah, turns out that whole Iran thing again is a little bit of a screwy situation. Speaking of screwy situations, we got a farm bill still not been passed, and then we've got Screwworm making a big resurgence. We got all of that and more on the Friggin Farm Ranch Report. And then to end the show, we've got kind of a bittersweet story about a Montana rancher did something kind of not unheard of, but something you don't hear about every day. So anyhow, let's hit the board first, then we'll try to unpack a little bit of the chaos. So the WASDE outlook has an increasingly tight beef supply. Production was below 2022 peak. All right, but I'm going to read my notes for me, and then you can have the bullet points up here. National Beef Wire Real-Time Index closed today at 362.18, down 343 on the day. The CME Feeder Index was 365.77, down 62 cents. April live cattle futures came in at 232.37, up 222. April feeders at 349.67, up 312. April lean hogs at 96.07, up $1.25. And on the grain side, May corn at 4.52 and a quarter, down a cent and a half, basically no change. May beans 12.01 and 3/4, up 5.5. And May Chicago wheat is at 5.91, down 12 1/4. So cash side eased off a little bit. National Beef Wire's real-time index down $3.50. But the board is kind of bouncing back. And so this is a exact quote from Perplexity AI for my show notes here. Classic case of futures trying to lead and cash dragging its feet. Grains just kind of flopping around. Corn soft, beans with a little life, wheat taking it on the chin. So it's been it's been kind of a wild market, and I don't know exactly how to analyze that. We'll as we go on a little further into this show, not this particular episode, but the show, the royal we, if you will. Once we get this a little more dialed in, I'll have a little better idea. But essentially, well, we'll just keep chugging along here, and then we'll go. Now my we'll come back to that. Yeah, so now slide 3. There we go. Tight beef. Sounds like a really weird name for a porn. Anyhow, tight beef, shaky leverage. Cattle and beef outlook with a tight herd, strong prices, and a lot more risk than cheerleaders want to talk about. That's also a straight quote. They even put it in quotes. Perplexity AI. It's not bad. It's all right, so tight herd. Short numbers all the way around the board. We talked a little yesterday about how we do have some heifer retention numbers, but that's a long game. And as we'll get into the screwworm issue, that we're going on 2 years in a row without any Mexican imports, which is a lot of pounds of beef left off the table due to that screwworm outbreak. All right, so back in here, the WASDE is the World Agricultural Supply and Demand Estimate report, and it's a monthly set of numbers that trade that the trade lives and dies on. It bumped 2026 cattle price forecast another $12 a hundredweight. So another $1 a pound is what they're projecting to add on to current costs. And they're still projecting beef production below the 2020 peak or 2022 peak. So that means low supply. It's going to mean high demand. Cattle prices should be good. National Beef Wire's commentary's got Nebraska and Western Corn Belt. Okay, so cash is softening versus futures. National Beef Wire commentary's got Nebraska and the Western Corn Belt a few bucks softer on cash this week. Mid $180 live, high 310s to low 320s dressed. Still pretty strong numbers, but down from the highs. In the meantime, futures are up $2 to $3. So when the cash index is down and the board is up, it either means the Packers are trying to get the upper hand on the cash trade, which is usually the case, or the futures market is front running another leg higher. I tend to say that it's the Packers trying to gather an upper hand. On the leverage and risk side, Farm Progress and some of the market outlook folks are calling 2026 one of the tightest beef supply years since the early 80s, with fed cattle potentially up 165 to 240 bucks a head over prior years at the peak. So prices sound really good until you tack on the fertilizer cost, which just went up about 30 to 40% here pretty much overnight. Fuel spiking, going to be in limbo for there. And then interest rates also probably in limbo. Again, little rehash from yesterday. So what Perplexity is telling me to say here is this isn't a get-rich cattle market. I think you're probably aware of that. But if you're not, not a get-rich time. So on the cow-calf side, you're thinking, can the feedlots still afford to pay for these calves when their corn and the fuel and all the operating notes cost more. If you're on the backgrounding or feeding them out, it's do you buy them now and hope everything kind of stays the course, or what the hell do you do there? So you got high prices, but you got probably even higher costs. And so it's a big gamble. And if you gamble wrong, it's especially if you're a smaller producer, that might be a smaller pile of chips, but it sure hurts every bit as much, if not more. So I'm curious as how everybody's handling this. If you're in this situation, are you how are you managing your risk? Are you doing the LRP program, some forward contract? How are you hedging, or are you just riding that cash market? I wonder. I don't have any skin in that game at the moment, so I couldn't tell you. I don't know what I do. I'm also wonder what the local cash trade is. So what's your local auction bringing versus these numbers that I'm reading off here? Are you still is the cash market softening up a little bit? I don't know. Stuff I was hearing from Corbett Wall sounds like there's still really good cattle prices. All right. So let's go into our next segment here. We got the fertilizer shock. We touched on it yesterday. But this is how the Iran war has really thrown a giant wrench, a suicide wrench, a kamikaze wrench into the whole nitrogen fertilizer urea market. The NOLA spike. So the New Orleans, Louisiana, is their barge. So NOLA urea jumped from about $516 to $680 a ton in the days following the strikes on Iran and the whole Strait of Hormuz being essentially shut down. The Middle East, it ships close to half the world's urea, and I think it's somewhere around 30% of the ammonia. And so then when you shut down the main passage point for that huge chunk of urea and ammonia, that causes all the fertilizer prices over here to spike, and just worldwide, because it's half of the world's urea goes through there. So because of that, analysts are now talking about 1 million to 1.5 million acres of ground being pulled out of corn and put into the soybeans, just based on the fertilizer cost. Corn takes a lot of nitrogen. So there's I don't know, a bunch. My AI notes say that a bunch of growers are pulling crops out of pulling their fields out of corn, moving the beans. Some are just doing what they have to. So they're not going forward in their rotation, or they're cutting back on their fertilizer, and then just hoping for a good yield. But that also looks like a lot of no bids on nitrogen for a while, and or like get it now because that price is good till close of market or whatever, till after 4, and then I don't know. And there's a lot of farmers who budgeted in their costs, their fertilizer costs back in December, and now you're looking at a 40, sometimes 50% higher cost in that. And that boy, it's tough to make it pencil out. And you got a lot of farmers up in arms, and I'd say rightfully so. But it's kind of the game you play with the subsidized markets. And I'm kind of curious. I need to look into this. This would be a task for what would it'd be a task for AI research. But kind of contrasting the parallels between post World War I, so the Roaring 20s, and now the Roaring 20s. And then while we're not coming off a world war per se, we are coming off a war that was kind of global in scope. Hell, it was even named the Global War on Terror. So it's not a world war, but it's a global war. And that in lies the difference. So you see, or something like that. But you had the grain bubble in the roaring during World War I, when all the fighting was being done in Russia, Ukraine area, all that. Ukraine being the breadbasket of Europe, all that wheat production comes to a standstill, and now you have all this new ground being plowed up, and you gotta all of a sudden got a huge surplus of wheat, and the wheat market just bottoms out. And that all of that plays into, with all the other stock market crash and everything that led into the Great Depression. Like, you wonder, like, what kind of parallel is that from the ethanol mandate all through the early 2000s up through today, but instituted under George W. Bush, led to just kind of a permanent government thumb on the scale of the corn market. And now we have this other potential excuse me. Sorry, I was about to have a heart attack from coughing too much. So now you have this other war kicking off that has a potential to be a global / worldish war, that'll be my like new war update. It'll be worldish war 3.5 or whatever. Anyways, so I wonder. It's that old, goes back to that old saying, like, history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And so while it's not a one-to-one comparison, it seems like there are a lot of parallels between these two particular periods in time. And while the 1920s in the U.S. was a relative peacetime, and here in 2020s we're not at war, but we're doing war stuff or something. So yeah, kind of some parallels, not a one-to-one comparison for sure. Okay, and then where I'm trying to find my spot here. Okay, so anyway, there's a lot of guys thought they'd catch a break on the fertilizer this winter, but instead, Iran and every country surrounding it has caught a bunch of missiles instead. So now we're looking at $450 corn and $680 a ton urea, and trying to make the math, and it's not mathing all that well. And so sometimes that's adding close to $100 an acre just in nitrogen compared to what they were, hoping to pay. And So you got to eat that cost and cut back on your fertilizer, and probably cut back on your yields. Or do you go pull it out of corn altogether and go to beans and hope that that you're ahead of the market and it doesn't catch up to you on that? So I'm curious as what some of you guys back in the Midwest, what's your thoughts there? What's the fertilizer price look like? Is it are you getting quotes? Or are you getting no bids? Is it call back later or get it in now before the price changes? And then on the acres, are you pulling out of corn? You go into beans? I don't know. What's the deal? It's on the cattle side. Does the corn acre, all those acres being pulled out of corn, what's that mean for the feeder prices come fall? I would imagine they're gonna get a little steep. So it's all kind of a big crapshoot at the moment, and I'm not sure how I like it. All right, segment 3: more war, more inflation. So with the Iran thing still, it seems like maybe it's at a low boil right now. That seems like we're not getting real great reporting from our government on the amount of damage that was sustained. 7 soldiers died, service members. I don't remember what all branches they were, but yeah, that's leading to just kind of deadlock when it comes to the shipping around there. Yeah, and that whole thing, it's, I mean, just a huge amount of oil and fertilizer goes through there, and then with us just running sorties across Iran all day, every day, and Iran taking pot shots seemingly everywhere. They hit a couple tankers in the Strait of Hormuz today, and yeah, it's not a great thing. And it's people are really starting to take notice. So the American Farm Bureau president was out there saying that if we don't prioritize shipments of urea, ammonia, phosphates, sulfur, all that type of stuff, we're going to see another round of food inflation, regardless of what the grain prices do. The British National Farmers Union and a whole bunch of others are saying the same thing on the other side of the pond, that this could set off another huge cycle of food inflation. So we just kind of got out of the last inflation crisis. I mean, and I remember that shit very well. Fuel was through the roof. Food, eggs, milk, everything was through the roof. And then you had the Fed jacking up the interest rates, which they kind of had to do to try to get the inflation rate to cool off. But now you got the fertilizer and the fuel going up again, and the Fed's backing away from any interest rate cuts because we still got to worry about inflation. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, and you're just damned all the way around if if you're in corn and soybeans or and cattle too. Like you're getting a pretty good paycheck, but how much of that's going back into inputs, and it's a lot bigger chunk this year, it seems like. And then yeah, the like the grain board just kind of bleh. And yeah, it's when usually it's the prices are good on one side, they're bad on the other, and now they're just it's kind of ugly all the way around. Little gross. So it begs the question, like, do you pre-buy your inputs, hoping that you get them now before they get any higher, or you're gonna roll the dice that that old Trumpy bear is gonna get this thing figured out before shit gets way sideways, and that's a tough bet too. So it's all up in the air. It's a crazy situation. And so say this thing drags on through the summer, and we're coming harvest and wheat planting, and getting into fall works, weaning and all that. But so what do you do? Like, do you cut your rate? You cut your acres? I don't know. Got to get creative, I suppose. All right. So moving on to the farm bill. This is always a fun one. Farm bill, of course, being the big beautiful bill that gets all the farmers their subsidies and all the crop insurance stuff, and then also all the food stamps and the school lunch program. All falls under the farm bill, and making it a giant political football that everybody's got their hand in, but not many people actually involved in farming or agriculture. So Farm Bill 2.0 and a group of farm organizations using the phrase existential threat with a straight face. A nice little hook there. Perplexity. The House Ag Committee pushed the Farm Food and National Security Act of 2026 out of committee. Commodity groups are saying thank you, but also, where's our money? It's not enough. Not a strong enough safety net for this level of input and market volatility. Aside from that, there was a group of 56 farm organizations that sent a letter to Congress in January talking about an existential threat to American farming. They pointed out that fertilizer was up 37%, or around there. Labor was up about 47%. Interest up over 70% compared to a few years ago, even after all the big aid packages. And a lot of the relief that's promised doesn't come through till late in this year, 2026, after all the plantings decisions have been made, and now you're trying to lock in a bunch of expensive inputs, or try to make a new plan where you're doing without as many inputs. And so now in DC, it's farm bill time, and we know how that works out. If you pay much attention, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. And in the meanwhile, like, we're in this new phase of politics where, like, there's no middle ground outside of, like, John Fetterman. And then occasionally Thomas Massey will vote with the Democrats when Trump's being particularly stupid, or the Republicans are being particularly stupid. But outside of a handful here and there, and it's literally maybe a handful, you get party line votes. And then in the meanwhile, you're like, hey, your fertilizer quote expires at the end of the day. And you got all these farm groups are saying that this is an existential threat. And some of that might be scaremongering, but I think a lot of it are people are just like, hey, this math is not good, not working. So here, this is part of my AI prompted or generated script. Questions for the audience. What would actually help you more? This is not a bad question at all, actually. Crop insurance tweaks, disaster programs that pay faster, or something that like addresses the whole fertilizer and interest deal and actually addresses it. So don't. That last one's a fantasy. So while it sounds nice, that's not going to happen. So what's your other options? Oh, and also the government staying out of it, probably also not an option if we're being real honest. So is your banker counting on any of these farm bill changes to take place, or is it just kind of like pat you on the head? Yeah, that's nice. That's nice. I'm not sure. So falling in with this whole cattle squeeze, fertilizer crunch, fuel spike. We also got screwworm, still a thing. We've talked about it for over a year now. But it's not getting a ton of reporting. You hear about it on cattle specific channels and platforms from time to time. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not being reported on a whole lot. But New World screwworm, and it's right south of our border in the Mexican state of Tamaulipas. Is that how you say it? Bum. I think so. Let me rearrange my notes real quick. Okay, now I'm back. All right, so now we've got 2026 beef outlook. Is that right? No. There we go. Screwworm. Where in the hell did Farm Bill? Okay, here we go. All right. USDA shut down livestock imports from Mexico over New World screwworm, which is a flesh-eating fly that we eradicated from the U.S. decades ago, and we really don't want it back. Stuff is awful. But since then, we've shut off roughly 100,000 head a month of Mexican cattle that come north into the U.S. To grass and then later into the feedlot. For some Texas yards, those Mexican feeder cattle are close to 5% of their supply. Texas cattle feeders and others are warning that if this drags on, you're talking on the order of 1 billion pounds of beef lost out of the southern plains over time. And that they really will throw a big fit over that. But after all that, there's 1 billion pounds of beef. It's 5% of the cattle supply, which is a big chunk. Don't get me wrong. But they get 95% of their cattle supply from elsewhere. So they can probably handle it. However, that would be good for guys with a lot of grass and feedlot guys to get some cheap cattle. And but until this thing gets taken care of, that is off the table. CDC just warned that screwworm is across the border in Mexico, but not here yet. The USDA in Mexico are pouring money into sterile fly releases and all sorts of inspections and a bunch of protocols to keep it over in Mexico and not spread up here. So we got all this stuff going on in Iran with everybody watching, and with good reason. But this little screwworm deal could wreck all sorts of cow herds if it gets out up here. And from the cattle producer side, it's just another reason why the supply is still tight and looks to be tight for the foreseeable future. I'm curious what that has done to business down on the border. Whether it's guys selling feed, guys working at the quarantine facility at the yards there. I wonder. I don't know if anybody listening that has any sort of experience with that has anything they can shine a light on. Please let me know. But if the USDA keeps the border tight for another year to keep screwworm out, is that a trade-off? Is that good for us? In the long run, I think probably so, because screwworm's a bad thing. But there's a lot of guys that want to see those cattle flowing, and they're okay with the risk, and I see that side of it as well. And I'm not sure what side I lay on. But I guess it's kind of like this whole Iran thing. I don't want us to be in war, but since it seems like that we are, I hope we kick the shit out of them. And so if we got to shut the border down to keep things good for here domestically, I'll grit my teeth and say this is how it's got to be. So anyhow, but now we got one last story, and like I said at the beginning, it's kind of bittersweet, but it's about a ranch family up in Montana that had to make a very difficult decision, and they had a $21 million ranch for sale, and they just didn't sell it. But it kind of gets cuts right to the chase of some of the big struggles in ranching. And it's not just the cattle market, but there's a place up in Montana. It's around 38,000 acres, belonged to a ranch couple named Ken and Norma Thiel, Thiel, Thiel. I know Peter Thiel, the investor tech guy, it's pronounced Thiel, spelled the same way. So that's what I'm going to go with. Ken and Norma Thiel. On paper, the outfit was worth around 21 and change $1 million. And a lot of people, if they're getting out, their kids ain't taking over it, they're just going to list it with a broker, sell it to the highest bidder, and say, oh, that's too sad when it gets turned into a subdivision. But these people did the opposite. They didn't take any money. Instead, they took the whole 38,000 acres and they donated it to a land trust called the Montana Land Reliance, with the idea that it would stay as a working cattle ranch instead of getting subdivided into ski cabins and 40-acre ranchettes, which also not necessarily a bad thing, but if you're a multi-generational ranch family, it's not how you want to see your land end up. So basically they said, if we sell this on the open market, pretty solid odds that it's going to go to a developer or some sort of investment group and not a ranch family. And yeah, they're probably not wrong at all about that. But it's a big problem in rural America because, well, people like the Teals are trying to keep their ranch going, keep it producing. You have these hedge funds and investment groups that just buy up these ranches. You see it a lot in Nevada with, and it's a little more, it's a little less gross in Nevada because they're owned by mines that are run in conjunction. But the ranches are kind of a secondary. They're just like a really large, just tax write-off. That's all it is. It's just, a couple 100,000 acre tax write-off. Because the real money comes from digging ore out of the ground. But now you got Wall Street and a lot of the billionaire class are buying ranches. Just, I mean, it's like an NFT craze, except this shit's real, unlike an NFT, or at least the NFTs that were getting sold like crazy there for a while. Now this is actual soil. And you got funds with billions of dollars in farm and ranch land as an inflation hedge. Bill Gates, his investment group, has become the biggest private farmland owner in the country. Private equity and family and family offices hunting. Oh yeah, so a lot of the reason why they're doing this is it's a hard asset. It's got water rights. It's got nice views, and it's just rich people moving away from these cities that they've destroyed with their crazy politics and policies, buying a nice little place for way more than what the local economy can support, and then they take the West out of the western location that they moved to. They don't need the ranch to cash flow. They don't. They do it just for the view and to feel good about themselves, and then they probably get some carbon credits or some sort of conservation easement payment on the back end. And it's a lot different game than the family that's trying to buy that same quarter they've been trying to buy for the last 20 years so they don't have to make a whole process when they move cattle to that pasture over there. If they could just connect those two pastures, it'd be nice, but they can't get it done because some teacher's pension fund bought that ranch and then sold the water rights to Denver or wherever. It's just a different game. So like if you're trying to expand or even just keep it afloat, you can't just go out and compete with the rich neighbors. You're literally competing against billion-dollar hedge funds and or just billionaires just paying cash. It's a losing battle in a lot of cases. But in a lot of the West, rangeland prices didn't triple because the cattle prices got that good. They tripled because the rest of the world finally figured out that there's only so much land, and there's even less of it that's got grass and water and a view. It's kind of a shit deal if you ask me, but it's how it is. But think of that whole deal. That decision had to have been insane to make. You're sitting on almost $22 million. And, but instead you say, no, it's worth more than the money. Donate it back so that it's not going to get parceled up and a bunch of cookie cutter shitty built homes get thrown up on it. And no, it stays in cattle production. And I think it's a noble gesture. I hope something truly positive comes out of it because of that. And it's a damn shame that it had to go down like that. So the ranching world that we know it has been dying since the moment that we knew it, and longer than that, because if you talk to some of the old timers, they'll talk about how the old timers they knew talked about how the real cowboy days were long gone, and but now it's a different game, but it's also kind of the same. You look back in the glory days of the cattle boom, most of those ranches, while it was guys like me and you that ran the cattle and did the day-to-day stuff, most of those ranches were owned by wealthy aristocrats from Scotland and England. And yeah, and you can't outbid those guys because they got more money. And so yeah, it just makes it that much harder to make money running cows. But anyway, let's get this thing lined up and set down, and we'll keep moving for the next one. Quick recap. Cattle and hog futures up. Grain's kind of a mixed bag. Cash cattle index is a little soft. Fuel and fertilizer are through the roof. Fuel has I did see that they announced they're going to release a bunch of oil out of the strategic petroleum reserve, so that will help ease prices. But then we got to fill that thing back up, and we didn't get it filled up all the way from the last time we sold a bunch of it out. Also had to do with a war, believe it or not. Strange how that works. But analysts think that acres are moving out of corn and into beans, and fertilizer rates are going to get cut back. Farm Bill 2.0 is moving, but in the meantime, you got a whole shitload of farm groups that are saying like, "Hey, this is bad. This is real bad. Get a move on, please." Screwworm got the border locked down. I'm curious how many Mexican cattle get, illegally cross into the U.S. And I wonder specifically, has that number gone down since Trump's been in office? You'd think it had to be. Anyway, and then you've got the family up in Montana donating a $20+ million working ranch to a fund or a project so that it would stay a working ranch, and that's pretty cool, but sad at the same time. But I would like to hear from anybody listening out there. Tell me what the local cash trade's doing versus the National Beef Wire Index. What's the fertilizer deal looking like? And have you seen any of these big nameless blobs buying up ranches in your neck of the woods? I would like to do kind of a spotlight episode on that particular topic in specific. So anyways, also, if you're down close to the southern border, let me know what this screwworm deal is doing down there, how it's affecting you guys, and I'm curious about all that. So anyway, if you got anything like that or questions or concerns for me, send me an email, matt@burnin-daylight.com, or shoot me a DM on any of the socials, Burnin Daylight Podcast or @MoveYourAss on Instagram. Anyhow, this has been the Friggin Farm and Ranch Report. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll go a little deeper into some other stuff, hit the markets, and I'll try to act like I know what the hell I'm talking about. But on that note, you'll have a wonderful Thursday and move your ass. We're burning daylight.
Your eyes up in the morning beneath the stars so bright. Pull your hat down, make sure your cinch is tight. Horse is kinda snuffy, cold chill up your spine. We'll get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight. Burning daylight. Burning daylight. In the saddle till the job's done right. Just together, and you won't catch 'em all. But when you ride through the gate, make sure you sit up tall. I can see the horizon, it's looking pretty bright. Well, get your ass moving, son, we're burning daylight.